Hello again. Let's talk about Janus, Faces of Janus. Janus is a Roman god. He's the god of time, duality, beginnings, many other things. So Janus has these two faces. One face is looking towards the future, and the other face is looking at the past. The face looking towards the future is constantly looking for roadblocks and other types of things that might come in the way. The face looking towards the past is learning. It's learning and studying from all the mistakes and successes made in the past. This is important because the past always repeats itself. There's no way to change the past, and there's no way to change the future. There's only the present that we have effect over. We can change the present. The present is where everything happens. So while you're looking at the future, and while you're looking at the past, you also need to be looking at the present. But Janus only has two faces. And these are important because the present is dictated by the past. And you can change the present by looking at the past. And all of this sounds a little bit confusing. But let's say that you read books, right? You read books about history, which can be a very boring subject. It shouldn't be, but people educated in certain ways of talking and writing make it very boring. It's not boring, though, because a lot of the things that happen in the past are often more exciting than the things written in fiction. Now, we have these things called labels. Labels are a way to categorize things, but they also put stuff in boxes that can't be fit into a box or comprehended, such as if you're attempting to fit certain figures in history, such as Ragnar Lothbrok, or Napoleone Bonaparte, or Napoleon Bonaparte, or Hannibal Barca, Julius Caesar, any of the other historical figures. You can't really fit into boxes because their lives are so extensive that the only way to understand what they did is based on their actions and what drove them. Which is, it takes a lot of study to be able to understand these things, and thankfully we have other people that have done that for us and then written books about them. So reading is very important, but thanks to the internet and audiobooks, we don't necessarily have to read everything. Also, taking someone's word for it is not always a good thing. One method I've used to try and uncover the truth is what people hate the most. Now, what people hate the most is definitely something that you should study. For instance, Niccolo Machiavelli. A lot of historians and experts and elitists think that Niccolo Machiavelli is the scourge of Satan, who's awful. He's a terrible human being. He wrote a book, and he was a statesman and politician, and he served Cesare Borgia, who was, at that time, the son of the Pope. Niccolo Machiavelli has a disorder named after him, a psychological disorder. It is called Machiavellianism. He also has a method of thought named after him called Machiavellianism. However, this is called sociopathy, but every person has used tactics. Niccolo Machiavelli simply states out in his books about tactics and strategies. Many other books for these are The Art of War, The Book of the Five Rings, and there's one that I particularly like, and that's written by Robert Greene, called The 48 Laws of Power. It's important to study these things, but when we have an emotional connection to them, we are often blinded. So if you're reading a book that you have an emotional connection to, you often can't understand the lessons in the book, such as the Bible. I personally have issue reading the Bible because of my emotional connection to it. The Quran, have emotional connection to. Machiavelli's books you have an emotional connection to. But here in the Western world, we don't necessarily have an emotional connection to the Book of the Five Rings or Sun Tzu's Art of War. Because those two books are in a culture far distant from ours, and we can study them kind of like a child studies life as a game. And in that way, we don't have an emotional connection to. So I would highly recommend these books that I've read. However, you should go out and read your own books. Join me in the next part where we will talk about deducing uncommon situations.